We'd also like to thank our associate partners, Redington and Tally Solutions, for their support. And before we break for lunch, we close the morning with a conversation on how companies are increasingly moving from data to decisions. Across sectors, from health and wellness to space tech and enterprise applications, AI is reshaping how businesses build products, process intelligence, and create entirely new categories. This panel brings together founders and investors building at that intersection in a multitude of ways. Please join me in welcoming Gaurav Gupta, co-founder Gabit, Kshitij Khandelwal, co-founder and CTO Pixxel, Harneet Singh, founder and Chief AI Officer Rabbit AI, Harshit Kumar, VP Kalaari Capital, and moderating this discussion, we have Juhi Bhatnagar, advisor and founding team member, India AI Research Organization. Can we have a huge round of applause, please, as we welcome them on stage? Thank you.
Hello. Hi, everybody. Hello. So this panel is called Data to Decisions, Building AI Native Companies End to End. And I spent some time thinking how I wanted to run this panel. And I thought maybe we can just keep it, because it's a curated set of audience, we can keep it conversational and a little bit controversial, perhaps. Quick background on me. I'm, of course, Juhi. I am representing the Indian AI Research Organization. It was launched earlier this year on 1st of Jan, partly funded by the government. We're often called the ISRO for AI. We're building frontier AI, talent, IP, and platforms. And the founding team, which I'm a part of, consists of professors. Our founding director is Dr. Amit Sheth, who's come back from the US after 45 years. And combined, the professors on the founding team have trained more than 200 PhD students who are now working at all the frontier AI labs like OpenAI, Anthropic, Gemini, IBM, and so on and so forth. I have been an operator, and now I also invest in AI companies. My last role was head of strategy and growth for Snapchat in India, that I did for almost 5 years and grew the market over 5 years to being the largest market globally for them. So since we have 4 panelists and 40 minutes, I'll do a quick round of intros for each of them. I have kept 2-3 lines each so that we can move on quickly to the more important part, which are specific questions for each of them for their businesses, and the questions relating, of course, to AI and how AI is being adopted in their businesses. So first I have Gaurav, who is the founder of Gabit. He's literally building the health operating system using smart rings and data to personalize fitness, recovery, nutrition, and preventive health. Then I have Harneet Singh, who is the founder and chief AI officer at Rabbit AI. He basically helps enterprises build and deploy custom open source models quickly and efficiently. Then we have Kshitij Khandelwal, who is the founder and CTO of Pixxel. They are basically building satellites that can scan the Earth in more detailed ways, helping detect crop loss, pollution, climate change, industrial activity directly from space. And lastly, we have Harshit Kumar. He's a VP at Kalaari Capital. He focuses on consumer AI, and consumer brands, and basically spends his time figuring out which AI companies are building durable businesses versus simply riding hype cycles. So welcome, everybody. We'll start with one very broad question, which is basically level setting everybody here. What does AI native actually mean to you? and give us like one instance where AI has genuinely moved the needle and one where it disappointed you.
Hi everyone. Building Gabit. Gabit is a take on good habit as a word. So it's one word for good habit. Health is all about good habit. That's how we coined it. And just for context, Gabit is a longevity platform where you can track almost 150 markers on one platform across a smart ring, blood test, CGM, and a smart scale. Because all this data is super connected. But unfortunately, globally, if you look at it, all this is sitting on 4 different platforms, which should not be the case. So it's all connected. It's on one place on Gabit, and we help beyond data as well. We have supplements on the platform. We have coaching on the platform to help you get better. So that's the context of what we are building. For me, personally, like what I'm building and what I think about it, native AI is when AI is deeply embedded in consumer journeys and helping consumers get to an outcome. That's what I think how AI should be used. We've actually used AI in 2-3 different ways for 2-3 different outcomes, I would say. Can I just have a show of hands? How many people use wearables here? Like any wearable to track yourself? Just want to get a sense of how aware we are. And how many people use a smart ring here? Can you raise your hands? Yeah, still very few. And I think that's an important point. So this has become so powerful that now you can just buy this online like clothes, like apparel, put it on your finger, and it starts tracking you. And I can tell you that this exactly knows when my heart goes out of rhythm. Right? It exactly knows when my heart goes out of rhythm. Like there's so much potential in all of this. And what we have done is, first, whenever you build a product, it has to be based on fundamental science. So, for example, we said, what does science say? Science says that fitness, nutrition, sleep, and stress are the most important pillars of health. And we used tech and AI to bolt them onto the same ring so that you can track everything on one ring. And then we said, people use products when it becomes easy for them to use products. So how did we use AI? We said, how many people have tried using food logging? Ever logged food on an app? Very few. Super painful, right? So we said, how do we make it easy? Because you need to assess your nutrition as well. Just sleep, just fitness is not alone. Everything needs to come together. We used AI, but we built a speech-based AI module. So I log my food at the end of the day by saying 3 scrambled eggs for breakfast, 1 salad for dinner, done. Gives me my macros, micros, calorie in versus calorie out, very simply. So that's an example of how AI has been used to make it very simple. And I can tell you, our food log usage as a feature on our platform is better than most global apps there, which are mostly in single-digit usage, right? Just because we made it easy. Second, when we started, so the Gabit Smart Ring has become a thing and a lot of people use it, but still, people are like, what does resting heart rate mean? What does HRV mean? What does VO2 max mean? Now, you can't answer these questions. I can't have a team answering these questions. So what did we do? We used AI, again, to build an AI health coach for customers. So you can talk to it. And the great thing about the current form and avatar of AI is that it talks to you, right? So it converses you with seamlessly. And that's why it becomes so simple. And the last example I would share, and unfortunately, fortunately, I have only examples that have worked well for us. I don't have an example yet where it did work for customers, is the fact that we said all this data about you is connected. How do we bring it in one place? So we built Gabit One, which is across your blood work, across your smart ring, across the smart scale that we have, and across CGM, which is continuous glucose monitoring. All this data is put through Gabit One. It's an AI engine that we built, which assesses you and tells you what really is, let's say, screwing up your sleep, or which blood marker would be impacting it, and also tells you what you need to do with that. So I think we just recently launched it. I'll talk more about it later when we get into specifics, but that's another use case we have used it, and I think what I've seen from now, even prematurely, is mind-blowing. So yeah, we're doing all of this to make it simpler for users and more effective for users to track their health and improve their health.
Great.
Yeah, thank you. So firstly, I'll give a quick context about myself. So I'm Harneet. I've founded 5 companies, sold 1 company, and recently the founder and Cheif AI Officer of Rabbit AI. So there, we started in AI much before AI was a hype. You know, back in 2015, we were working on that. And I'll start with the context, basically, what is the expectation from AI native and what is the reality? And I'll start with a horse and chariot example. So remember the old times when wheel was not invented and everything was happening on the back of horses, your battles, your securing your borders and everything, right? So the most respected people were the ones who are skilled horse riders. They are considered royal people. Now, wheel has come in, right? Think of this as akin to AI. And people unlike old times, now we have pressure and mandate and all, and everybody wants to become AI powered quickly. So in the heist of doing that, what people are doing is they're sitting on the same horse and got one wheel in their hand, and they're calling themselves AI powered. And people who have more budgets and more mandate, they're putting another wheel in their another hand and still sitting on the same horse. So that is the current reality where a lot of use cases, a lot of POCs are failing, where the expectation is from the leaders to actually figure out where to put the wheel. You can build a chariot. And now the biggest skill becomes not the horse rider, but a person who's a chariot, right? Who's a Krishna who can orchestrate everything. And you have horse, you have your wheel as an AI, which can power the entire organization. Coming quickly to what that really means is, basically AI native means figuring out the PPT framework of your organization, people, process, technology, and figuring out that I don't fix by doing patches. With AI coming in, can I redesign the entire funnel? If I look at sales and marketing, can I redesign the entire workflow? One quick example, the work we have done, I worked as an AI consultant with South Korean Navy, and that's where at Rabbit AI we work very closely with AI in defense, AI in healthcare. So there our ask was, they have been solving this problem for 20 years, more than $20 billion spent every year in safeguarding the borders, right? When AI came, vision language models came, the first ask was, can we build AI which can detect naval mines inside submarines? Now it does not mean fixing their old process by adding an AI layer to that, but looking at what are the problems which were unsolvable without this technology, and where do I apply this technology to do that? So we figured that out, and we were the company who built vision language models which work on device, on premise for them, which can detect naval mines, took the accuracy from 77% to 97.5%. And now we are able to have unmanned submarines inside, seawater, which can diffuse naval mines. And that's where we also got a medal from DRDO for, I'm the non-uniform guy holding that medal, right, for saving soldier lives with AI. So I'll wrap up with saying that becoming AI native really means figuring out everything entirely from first principles and seeing where AI can be applied, and not just putting AI on top of everything.
Got it. So basically, business first, use case first, and then figuring out the people, process, product.
People, process, technology, in that order.
Got it. So this guy has actually built, he was one of the early builders of small models on Edge, and he's done some amazing work there. Moving on to Kshitij.
So the question is where it has worked and where it has not worked.
Yes.
Right?
What does AI native mean to you, quickly? And where has it worked for you, and where has it drastically failed?
As a space company, we make Earth observation satellites. We put them in space, take images of the Earth. Our entire business is pattern recognition. And with our satellites, we take thousands of images every single month. When you start looking at how these were analyzed years back, there would be a person who would be looking at these images, who would be looking at different markers, identifying where a crop has gone bad, or if it's intelligence or defense, they'd be looking at, this is where there is a reinforced hangar, this is where you have a camouflage target and things like that. So as a company, the entire premise with which we started was that we want to make satellites that take a lot of images. We want to root our business into this high quality pattern recognition. And that's how we started. We started in 2019 with the whole premise that we won't have people looking at each and every single image. We would have models that would work on it, machine learning models that would work on it. Over the last 3 years, specifically with the advent of companies like Anthropic and OpenAI, AI has now become mainstream. And with that, capacity to work on these use cases has improved. So that's one place where it has been very beneficial for us. The fact that we can build more and more complex models, people understand and trust these models better, becomes a very, very important part of the project for us. But one place where it doesn't work is when you ask your machine learning models to take responsibility of security and privacy, especially for national security projects. That's where you have to ensure that there are checks and balances. A very funny example of this from a couple weeks back is we were working on a proposal, and there was another organization that was working on a part of that proposal as a consortium, and they came back and said, so-and-so parameters are going to be needed. You need this much mass, weight, power for this payload to fly on the satellite. And we said, those are bullshit numbers, because it didn't make sense physics-wise. And they said, no, we checked it on ChatGPT and this is what came out of it. So using an AI model to write a proposal for a national security program is not something I would recommend. But that's where it works and doesn't work when you go very deep into the physics of what you want to do engineering-wise. The models do falter. But if it's something as simple and straightforward as automating, let's say, our workflows, we don't have mission control operators for our satellites anymore. We used to have people manning stations 24/7. Now there's no one. Unless there's an anomaly, there's an error that gets highlighted. So within reason, if you know where you can afford to bring in automation, AI automation specifically, it is something that has worked miraculously well for us. And there are areas where we are still wary of letting it creep in until there is a certain understanding of the accuracy of the models.
Got it. So governance, privacy, security, a human in the
Exactly.
loop, I guess that's the need of the hour. And I think we will come to that when I come to specific questions for each one of you. And I'm going to ask Harneet that what it takes for enterprises to adopt and what it means, what does the new deployment companies that all these big majors are deploying or investing in, what does that mean? But before that, lastly, your thoughts on being AI native?
Yeah, no. So I think everyone majorly covered all the points about, let's say, what is AI native versus, let's say, AI enabled. And we got different perspectives: consumer, enterprise, deep tech, right? For us, I think we feel that whatever we call as AI native is something that is built from grounds up with AI, and it's not an add-on at the end, right? It's eventually what Gaurav mentioned. You have to be embedded in the workflow, whether for an enterprise or for a consumer. Because enterprises and consumers are eventually going to pay for the outcome. What is the ROI on, let's say, the outcome that they are able to achieve out of a product or the service that they are using, right? And that becomes very critical when you say, what is AI native and how you can sort of further build on top of it. An example, like one of our portfolio companies that we invested in works with asset managers throughout, right? And it's repetitive work that an analyst does on creating these reports, creating memos, financial models. That is completely getting replaced with AI, right? And this is how you go deep within, let's say, one particular domain, one particular problem. You start grounds up with AI and eventually deliver an outcome that provides an ROI to an enterprise or this, right? I think one point probably just the disappointment that you talked about. The AI native companies will not have the luxury of what earlier SaaS companies had with higher gross margins because of course, the inference cost and the compute cost. So your models will have to evolve. Your business models will have to evolve so that you're able to first build a core defensibility and moat, and second, prove out the unit economics as you start to scale. With Claude, with Cursor, people are getting the MVPs out very quickly, but as you start to scale the business, the unit economics start to matter a lot, right? And that's where you need to have specific domain modes and where you can charge a different business model altogether, because you won't have that luxury of higher gross margins, which are typically a SaaS company used to have.
Got it. So higher defensibility, moat, which results in higher gross margins and control. Actually, that's a good segue to my next question. I'm not going to go one by one now. I'm going to maybe, so we have the entire spectrum of AI here, right? If you think about it, there's infra, there's data, there's applications, and then there's potentially for consumer apps or enterprise adoption. So infra and data, Kshitij is covering, and applications, Gaurav is covering. And we've got enterprise adoption view from Harneet and the investing lens from Harshit. Yes. So I think I want to now come to Harshit, you actually. You said defensibility and moat. See, today, the fact of the matter is that if you just compare the Indian ecosystem with, say, the US, you've got 100x more capital there. There's a better ecosystem on the entire stack. So why should, say, companies like Pixxel not move to the US? Why should they not move? Like, what are two reasons
want to
for them to build in India?
No, I think, see, India has its own structural advantages, right? India AI mission is doing a great job in sort of bridging the gap also. I'm just talking about AI companies, but it's broadly for, again, core technology companies that, you know, you can always talk about the maturity of the ecosystem in the US is at a far ahead space, but I think the rate of growth that India is seeing from achieving that maturity is also there, right? So I think in the last panel somebody talked about the RDI fund. There is also a strong push from the government to build core IP-led models, right? And eventually, see, we'll be in a situation with all the geopolitical things that are happening. It's eventually going to be a call. So, okay, to summarize, I don't have a yes or a no answer, a straight yes or a no answer to say should companies flip to the US or not. India has its own advantages, US would have its own advantages. But I think if in the situation that we are currently in, it is eventually going to be a situation where you decide where to operate and build and where to sell. You have the cost advantages, you have the talent advantages in India, but the entire world is your selling zone in that sense, right? A lot of our AI companies, you know, are building with teams in Bangalore, Delhi, Bombay, but selling to the US, right? So I think it's not, I would say it's again not a straightforward answer. From a capital perspective, I don't know, I just saw a news scoop yesterday, but a giant corporate is investing a large sum, yeah, in one of the AI companies, right? So pools of capitals are emerging, where people want to sort of deploy more, and a lot of VC funding has gone in. New pools of capitals are emerging, family offices, government funds, where there is a strong push towards building technology core IP companies from India, and that should give entrepreneurs the answer that where, you know, they should build and operate from, and they can sell anywhere in you know, if they have the product.
Got it. Capital pools always exist, but the question is the risk appetite. And
That's changing. That's what I'm saying. The new pools of capitals are taking that riskier asset sort of investments, right? Which earlier did not happen.
Got it. Okay. Your views on, do you think that the sovereign angle is the decadal trend that you guys are betting on by being in India?
So I will try to say this without sounding like a Fauji, but essentially if you look at data centers and data infrastructure in the world, it is being weaponized as well as it is a legitimate target in the event of a conflict. We have seen this with the situation in the Middle East right now, and it is only going to escalate from here. If you think about it, if let's say for a particular bank, if the banking infrastructure is you know, in AWS, Dubai or something like that. I'm not sure if there's an AWS center in Dubai, but let's say for a major bank, Indian bank, if they are working with a data center that's somewhere else, it is completely possible for that country to cripple this infrastructure in the event of a conflict. And our conflicts increasingly over the last 30, 40 years have become asymmetrical. We don't really engage as clearly in symmetrical warfare. When you start looking at all of this, data sovereignty goes from being just a buzzword to an actual requirement for the defense of the country. And that's where we have taken our bet also. We believe, so we recently partnered with Sarvam on building a space-based orbital data center. And part of the whole hype around data center is, you know, Silicon Valley fluff. But there's obviously a data sovereignty angle to it, where if you build your critical data sets, if you store your critical models, inferences, all of that work is happening away from you know, places where they could be sitting ducks as targets. It provides a layer of defense that doesn't exist today. So one perspective is national security. I think second is also self-sufficiency. You asked why companies like us, you know, don't do this outside of India. We want to do it from India for the world. I think India has this very strong position in the global south as a soft power when it comes to space. And also interacting with other countries, whether they are allies or strategic partners of India, we do offer the ability to provide low-cost engineering. Some people may shun it and say that it's degrading. Some people may say that, you know, that's our only advantage. I think it's somewhere in between. We have many different advantages, but a big chunk of the problem with AI infrastructure today is the rising cost of operating the data center, its impact on the water resources in a particular, you know, county in Virginia, its impact on the energy grid of that country. So we do have strides that we want to make as a country in our energy infrastructure over the coming years. And if we do live up to our targets, there is a good chance that we may have surplus energy in the next 5-10 years to actually take up the data center load of the world also. So there are multiple angles to think about this, but it's yet another trillion-dollar opportunity that we could end up missing out on. If you look back in the last 30 years of our history, whether it's semiconductors, whether it's things like aircraft manufacturing, there are many areas where we have sat in panels like these, in rooms like these, discussed, oh, we should do this, but in the end, the outcome of it, you know, is that we are bystanders to technology that gets developed elsewhere in the world. Yeah. So perhaps it's time to look and reflect and say that, okay, fine, you know, we should be building something in India for India, and then use it for the rest of the world also.
Yeah, got it. So I think very well said, and obviously India has the opportunity right now everywhere, whether it's enterprise, whether it is space and defense and health, and everywhere you look there is a reset and there is opportunity. We obviously have to spend much more energy and time on innovating as a country, so building more products instead of just say services. Just unpack, so just another question for you, Kshitij, before I move on. For the more technical audience, because you obviously collect a lot of data in space, tell us more about your data stack and how sovereign is that data stack, right from the energy to the data management piece to the model piece. Of course, you've partnered with Servam to do the local inferencing, but talk about the data, the stack that you built on, and how is that different and better?
I wouldn't say it's better, but when you have satellites that are operating in space, they are dual-use assets, which means they have civilian as well as non-civilian use cases. And that's where it becomes important to secure them, because this is data that you would use for intelligence, this is data that you would use for defense, and it's important to protect these assets. Tomorrow, if someone gets you know, control of someone else's satellite, they could just make it go and crash into the International Space Station and create a debacle. It's just a stupid example, but essentially you need to protect these assets very, very seriously. And that's been a part of our engineering ethos from day zero, where we ensure that privacy and just encryption is something that we are very serious about. Then from there, where is the data collected, where is it stored? Even if the data passes hands outside of India, are we sure of the encryption that we have? Because for these satellites, they operate like they're in polar orbits. So the best way to communicate with them is to have ground stations near the poles. Now, there's no sovereign territory on Antarctica or in the Arctic Ocean. So we work with partners there, obviously. It's a fairly democratized business to own ground stations in different parts of the world. But then how much exposure do we have over there? Once the data comes down, how do we maintain privacy of the user is something that's very important. When we are running different models, ensuring that you know, we don't bring in artifacts of modern generative adversarial networks into data that is actually used for decision making by the end user. So I think that is how the stack generally looks like. And all the way from space to our office in Bangalore, there's definitely multiple loops that we jump through. So I wouldn't say it's like better than any super sovereign stack. But what we're trying to do over the last few years is ship more and more of our compute to our satellites. So we started with a few demo satellites that had bare minimum compute. We sent 6 satellites up last year that have more serious compute. So we can now identify, let's say, clouds on board the satellite itself, and that rejects all the cloudy images so that we make better use of our capacity. We can identify targets from the satellites as well. We can identify, we can do better compression models on the satellites. And then we are taking it one step further with our upcoming satellites. We are putting H100s on the system so that a lot of the actual image processing that was supposed to happen on ground can now happen in space. We can host more complicated models on the satellites and then straight away bring the information down to the ground instead of having to depend on a data center on the ground to do it. So slowly, steadily, the idea is to move as much of the computational stack to the satellite as possible so that on ground, all that's there is applications.
Got it. Okay, understood. Coming to you, Harneet, you've seen what has happened to the IT stock market. So in some ways, I mean, you basically go to enterprises and tell them that use these AI open source models and to build and deploy solutions, right, for their use cases. Yeah. Tell us about what it takes to actually sell to enterprises, sell AI solutions to enterprises. Talk about the entire change management piece, talent readiness, understanding and educating the end user. How do you even identify what to solve and how do you identify what data exists, etc.?
Interesting question, tough question. But everybody talks of change. As Kshitij was saying that, we were discussing, so it's pretty popular that, US innovates, Europe regulates, China manufactures, and India discusses. So when we started Rabbit AI, we started out of London. We sold AI to half of Europe. A lot of European companies were there, and everybody asked why you did it in Europe, because we built 4 regulations which Europe had, right, where Llama and GPT and all these guys were getting banned. There, when we started, we figured out the first principal problem with AI, which enterprises will definitely face. Number one, you don't own your AI. Own your AI means whatever work you have spent by training that model, that guy can anyways change their APIs, change their conditions, and you lose all that intelligence. Number two, you don't own your data. Already covered, I'll not go deep into that. And number three, it's not accurate for your use case. So the kind of models or the kind of companies we attracted, one was defense, I already gave an example. Another was healthcare. Healthcare can't really outsource the data. So we work very heavily on drug discovery, pharmacovigilance, a lot of these use cases where enterprises bring this domain intelligence and we custom fine-tune these small language models which are owned by them. This is a land grab situation. Nobody wants to rent. And third thing, which is, I serve as an AI advisor to Oman Prince, and that happened after the South Korean Navy. So when the first question the Crown Prince of Sultanate of Oman asked me, can you help me build an entire AI stack where I go from my home palace to office palace and I can in 15 minutes know the pulse of my entire nation? Very difficult ask. I thought I'll not come back alive from there if I don't solve this problem. 6 hours, brainstormed, consulted with all the experts. Very, very interesting time, and the life changed after that moment. So we figured out a layer, a 3-step framework of how to actually implement AI. I'll probably cover it in short. Level 1, level 2, level 3. Level 1 is the tooling layer. Level 2 is the platform layer. Level 3 is the systems layer. Most of the world is still stuck at level 1 and expect the ROI which comes from level 2 or level 3. I'll give small examples of each layer. Tooling layer means you using an AI tool to generate your images better. You using AI tool to generate content better. You use AI tool to generate coding stuff better, and you gain individual efficiency at that level. You don't gain any organizational efficiency. If your developer or your designer codes faster and does 8-hour work in 4 hours, baki ka 4 hours wo kya karega? Is he gossiping? Is he doing a fling in office or whatever, right? So you really need to translate that thing into developer organizational productivity, and that will never come at level 1. So all the workshops today, all the AI trainings, a very sad state of affairs when I switch between London and India. When I come to India, very sad state of affairs. We have more trainers in India than the entire UK and Europe, but they are training for the wrong outcome, wrong thing. Level 1, you'll never get that efficiency. That's the bare minimum thing, right? Level 2 comes where you actually look at workflows and start building end-to-end stacks using whatever tool you use. World does not care. It cares about what outcome I can get, and at the org level. And level 3 is where you actually make systems. So whatever Oman Prince asked us to say, they want a system. I also spoke to a CEO of a very large company, and he told me one of the life lessons. He said, Harneet, you know what? For a CEO, what the entire CXO team does, they all work very hard to fool the CEO. That's a fact, right? They get paid heavily for that. So the CEO's task, the leader's task is to actually get the intelligence. He said, I want an autonomous system which tells me what are the problems in my system, where can I grow my business, and AI can really act as a think tank. So this is the layer we want to be, and I guess the step from tool, platform, systems is where we need to progress towards. And that's how we also do. Last line, I know there's shortage of time. So in India and in enterprises, it works same way. It works as dikha do, samjha do, pahuncha do. Handshake with the right intent, hand holding till the right destination. People do handshakes in India, people do MOUs and all. Hand holding is missing. If we build that, we'll be up for the change.
Amazing, very well put. Great. Coming to you, Gaurav. Of course, you know, Gabit is one of the most popular rings in the country today. You've seen Ranbir Kapoor and Badshah and Raj Shamani, all of them wearing the ring. I think talk to us about how do you see, you know, personalization, actually AI driving the changing consumer behavior in itself in health.
Yeah, sure. So if you look at it, what I love about wearables or smart ring is the most personalized output that you can see. This is your data, right? And I think what we are seeing is no matter how much people preach others to actually improve their health, like you should sleep on time, you should sleep for 7.5 hours, you should eat better food. What we've seen is as soon as people put a ring on their finger, it's become very easy to start your health journey. So you buy this like online, put it on your finger and you start your journey. And when people look at their own data, they start moving. Oh, my sleep is not right. Oh, this is red, I need to move it. My sleep score is not good. So I think a lot of motivation or intrinsic motivation comes when you look at your data rather than people telling everyone. For example, my mom is a power user of the ring. Nothing to do with tech. I just build the ring and send it to her. And she doesn't want a bad sleep score in the morning. That's it. And her sleep has improved in the last 2 years. She sleeps on time, makes my dad sleep on time, doesn't watch TV in the night, and I can see her health improving on her face. Right? So I think that's what it's doing. I'll just extend that to another example, which I said about Gabit one. I'll share an example to make a point. Again, all this data about us, I'm sure a lot of people get blood work done continuously. They also have some wearables on them. You also have a smart scale at home. You probably track your glucose. But none of the data talks to each other. And in isolation, none of that is powerful. So in Gabit 1, we have put that together. And I'll give you an example. I put my data through Gabit 1. And you know what Gabit 1 said? Gabit 1 said, you have increased your workout intensity in the last 4 months. You have reduced your carbs dramatically in the last 4 months. And there is stress on your pancreas as seen in your blood report. Can you please stop doing such extreme changes altogether? I can't think of anyone that I know or I can reach out to who can give me such good insights on my health. And that only happened because Gabit has been designed to an ecosystem. So the fundamental building block is all your data is in one place. It knows my workouts, it knows when I sleep, it knows my food, and now my blood markers also coming in, and it is able to correlate saying, this is the correlation and this is what you should do. So I think AI is definitely helping us personalize at scale. And with variables and continuous data monitoring, it is all your data. And when you're in control of your data, there can be so much. And the last thing I would add is if you take it further, because this exactly knows when my heart goes out of rhythm, imagine if you had, and by the way, for a single person, this is able to collect millions and billions of data points on every aspect that I'm talking about. Put all of through that AI and ask AI what is wrong with this health. And the amount of answers and the kind of answers we'll get in the next 1 or 2 years will be path-breaking in terms of what it can do. And these wearables will evolve to track every important marker on you quite accurately. And with AI coming on top, they can predict so much for you that actually it help in better preventive health and stop all the chaos in health that's happening in the world today. So next 2-3 years is going to be super exciting.
Got it. Amazing stuff. I think last question and maybe 1 or 2 line answers each is what we want to leave the audience with is that what is, say, this one insight about your industry or company or say one decadal trend that you will basically go all in? And it could be like, if it is non-obvious, that's great. So what's the trend?
You will use one wearable on you to track everything important in your health. That's what will happen. People won't use multiple things.
So I would say, don't be the tenants of the AI world, be the landlords. This is our only chance. This is your only chance as a professional. This is your chance as a community or as a country to be the real landlords of the tech world. This kind of opportunity will not come again. So let's grab it.
That's not non-obvious, Harneet. Come on. We need better. We need something better.
The biggest money is not being made on the models or tech. It's made on the applications. Maybe Gabit is making a lot of money. So the faster you move to applications from being a wrapper around something, I guess that's where the real money lies, applications.
Got it.
I think just like GPS and Google Maps, every pixel of Earth will have its own digital identity. Everything from soil characteristics to what building stands there to what the history of that pixel is. And as we have better and better models, we will get to a point where that identity becomes the source of all action that happens on ground. So I think, yeah, just like a moment of culmination for geographical information systems is what's coming.
Harshit?
Yeah, so I think just maybe a one-liner. So trust, security, and habit basically would again be the, let's say, the moats in the next decade for all the AI companies, right? So you have to prove the security, you have to build a habit, whether for consumers or being such deeply integrated in critical workflows for the enterprises that you are irreplaceable, basically.
Great. So I guess the takeaway from this panel is that one device for all your health needs, application-focused mindset, every pixel on Earth will have its own digital identity and trust at the center of everything. So thank you so much for your time. Do we take questions?
Data sovereignty, self-sufficiency, and the emergence of new pools of risk capital focusing on core IP. What a timely and sharp discussion. Thank you all so much. Can we have a huge round of applause, please? We'd like to present our panelists with a small token of our appreciation from TAI. We'd also like to thank our associate partners, MG Motor India and New Look, for their support. Thank you so much. And that's my time with all of you this morning. Thank you for being such a wonderful audience and for helping us kick off the inaugural India Innovation Day 2026 with so much energy. We'll now break for lunch and resume at 2:30 p.m. with another exciting lineup of conversations. Please enjoy your lunch and continue sharing your experiences on social media, and don't forget to tag TAI Delhi-NCR using #IDay26. And if you're not already a member of our community at TAI, do connect with them at the registration desk. We'll see you back soon. Thank you.